Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to The Caring Economy with Toby Usnik. Today, I'm honored to have my friend of many years, probably 20 plus years, Ian Malin, who wears many hats besides a friend. Ian is a career aviation finance guru who has risen through the ranks and is now the CFO of AJW Group, working globally. That's an industry which we'll explore a bit today because, in fact, we all know with COVID, things have slowed down a bit, but it's still humming. And then in his spare time, he and his wife, Kate, who's my former colleague from Christie's and who's awesome herself, started into the restaurant business in Portland, Maine, where they now live with their two kids. And I want all of our listeners who pass through Portland to check out Little Giant, their restaurant, which we'll hear about today. And then finally, the third chapter that I think is really interesting in a COVID era, Jan and his pals have started an organization called Cooking for Community, which is the restaurant industry stepping up in Portland to help pivot through this COVID era. So welcome to the Caring Economy, Jan Malin.
Thank you, Toby. It's always great to see you, and I'm glad to connect with you again after what's been far too long of a period.
So Jan, tell our listeners here on the Caring Economy a little bit about your career journey. How do you got where you are today, the accidents, the pivots, why in some places you turned left versus right? We met we met through Kate when we worked together at Christie's, and then she happily went out to Hong Kong on my team there. And you two settled in there for a while, had your kids. Now you're back in Portland, Maine. Give us a sort of a roller coaster ride with Jan Malin and the turns that you made.
I grew up as the son of a diplomat, so I was a diplomat brat for my entire youthful years, and so with that came an appreciation for travel and for new experiences. And new experiences associated with travel is not just seeing the sights, but also the foods and the smells and the cultures. And so I knew when I was in university, college in Middlebury, that I wanted to have a job that allowed me to travel. Finance, as a lot of people did back at the time there, thinking that it was a challenging but ultimately financially rewarding and financially secure path. And so I spent some time in San Francisco, ended up in New York, went to Frankfurt, back to New York, and ultimately Hong Kong with my then new wife, your former colleague. And I spent some time on the buy side, which is putting money to work. I spent some time on the sales side, which is advising people who want to invest. And then ultimately realized that everything that I was doing was very high level, very deal driven. And so once you're done with the transaction, you sort of thank everybody for the compensation and you move on to the next deal. You don't really have any accountability. And that's an important term for what we're going to talk about today, accountability in terms of the outcome of that advice. And so I had an opportunity to work for one of my clients who was looking to bring some of my skill set in-house. That's the AJW Group. And I decided that I would take that leap, learn a little bit more about how companies really work, and then go back again on the investing side, having seen both principal, advisor, and then company or corporate experience. And it just so happens that now, almost 10 years later, I'm still with that corporate. So I never took that leap back to the finance side, and that's okay because I'm doing what I want to do. Ultimately, which is just helping a particular company grow and navigate ups and downs and certain challenges where we find ourselves today. The company that I work for, my full-time job, it's been around for 89 years. It's a family-owned business based in London. And basically what we do, we are the people that the airlines are calling when your flight is delayed for mechanical reasons. They're calling the company that I work for or some of our competitors to find out if a spare part for an aircraft is available anywhere within, not even hours, but minutes, so that people don't complain and post tweets about how rubbish the airline is because they can't get to their destination. So that's what we do. We move parts around the world and we repair parts. We're the largest independently held company in that space, and Generally, it's pretty recession-proof because irrespective of whether planes are flying, there's certain elements to the aircraft that need to be maintained and repaired, even if the plane hasn't flown. That being said, this environment has grounded a lot of aircraft, and so it's been a very, very challenging year, but it's also given us an opportunity to rethink elements of our business model and develop new strategies, which is what we're in the process of now rolling out.
But then parallel to all that, you also decided to go into the restaurant and hospitality business as sort of a hobby, I guess, but it's kind of become, your side hustle has become almost, I think, a main hustle right now, and one that's bringing you joy, I think. Is that a fair statement?
I wouldn't say it's my main hustle. My main hustle is still my day job. I have a small business here in Maine, and the reason why I got into that is because I love, like I said earlier, I love food. I love the ceremony of restaurants and the gathering of friends and colleagues and business opportunities or wherever. And the reason why I chose to start a restaurant and grow it was I've been lucky to be working from home way before working from home was a thing like it is now. And I moved to Portland, Maine, because that's where my wife's family is after all these different stints in these different locations. And I realized that I had no connection with the community. I never dialed the 207 number, which is the area code for the entire state of Maine. That's how small Maine is. It still only has one area code. And I didn't have any business interests. I never spent any money in the community other than it for my own personal effects. So, groceries and things like that. And so I didn't, other than my home office, I never really had any interaction with the community. And so I saw this as an opportunity to get into something that I love. Um, I was probably a little bit jaded in that, I do all this stuff on a high level for major corporations and airlines. So how hard can a restaurant be? Should be pretty straightforward. Well, let me tell you, everyone says restaurants are hard. I can validate that point.
Here, here.
And so I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to create jobs. I wanted to pursue a number of elements. It's as much as a business opportunity as it is a real estate play too, because I have the building that I own. So that was part of the long game here too. But I really wanted to connect and with the neighborhood and the community, and give back to Maine, because Maine has given us a lot in terms of lifestyle security. It's a safe place, clean place to live. People associate it with vacation, but not necessarily with the people that are there on the ground.
Can you tell us a little bit about your restaurant, Little Giant, and its role in the community, particularly now with COVID? I know that every turn, like in New York where I am, you've got new stipulations and you're indoors, you're outdoors, you're limited capacity. How is it that you continue to survive, if not thrive, in a COVID era?
Yeah, 2020 was looking to be a good year. We had made a number of changes in terms of headcount and operations. And so I was sitting there in March. It was restaurant week. It was the second week of March. And people were commenting on a number of the improvements that had happened over the years to Little Giant. And I was very pleased with the opportunity to really take advantage of the summer season, which is where we make most of our money in Maine. And I remember very vividly, March 13th was the day that things really became serious for for this country in terms of COVID. March 14th, I made the decision to prematurely close, even though we weren't mandated to close. And I think the next day, the state then suggested or imposed the restriction on restaurants. So we were dark in March. We monitored the situation. We had to make some unfortunate staff reductions. And I spent most of my time researching then the CARES Act, and trying to figure out what financial support was available. And we then kicked off takeout in April, like everybody else. And at the same time, I was connected with some local associates of ours who were trying to get this idea of cooking for community off the ground. Mm-hmm. And at that time, we hadn't heard of World Central Kitchen, which is what Chef Jose Andres has done, which is a very similar model. And the model is basically we were able to raise money from donors to pay restaurants to produce meals, to feed food insecure people, and in doing so, wherever possible, buy food locally, buy supplies and packaging locally, therefore taking that money and putting it back into the local economy. And what's neat about this little program here is that we've done close to 80,000 meals now across the now 12 restaurants in the Portland area. We started with 2, Little Giant and another one. We've expanded into the Lewiston Auburn area, which is another region here in Maine, where we have 3 restaurants there, and we also have restaurants now in the Mid Coast, which is sort of the Camden, Rockland area, so more down east Maine. What's also special about this is that it's all volunteer. There are no professional staff. Every dollar that we raise goes directly back into the community. There's no what I call leakage in terms of other overhead that has to get incurred. That we realize that there's limitations with that model, and that there are eventually, if we do want to grow this, then we're probably going to have professional staff. But right now, it is 100% put back into the community. And the reason why this really resonated with me, Toby, is I remember sitting in my home back when all the toilet paper and all the grocery stores were bare, and thinking, my goodness, I'm a little bit scared. I'm genuinely scared. And just imagine if I'm scared with I still have my day job, and I had my house and I had heat and all that sort of stuff. Imagine what somebody who's been laid off, how they feel, or isn't sure about what their future looks like. And I said, how can I contribute in this environment? And there's no shortage of charities that are constantly, approaching, us and asking for support, and we support the charities that we do. But this was an opportunity for me to use something that I had that was sitting idle. I have a commercial kitchen. I have talented staff who know how to make food safely and at scale. How can I deploy these assets in a way that is relevant for the situation that we found ourselves in this time? And that was how I realized very quickly I could jump into this cooking for community opportunity with my business.
Yeah, I love the savoir-faire you bring to it with your background in finance. You've got the whole understanding of scale and how to really have impact, which is what the whole caring economy message is. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we have today as our guest on the caring economy, Ian Malin, who is a veteran aviation finance guru, I would say, CFO of the AJW Group, also owner of Little Giant in Portland, Maine, and a co-founder of Cooking for Community. Ian, can you tell us a little bit about the demographics of the people, not so much that you're serving, but those who are stepping up? It seems to me you and Kate are younger than me. I've always thought of you as sort of millennial whisperers. So how is it that you've got one of the hottest, hippest restaurants in Maine, which is, and in Portland in particular, which is incredibly progressive? You did actually just show up in a certain sense, but you're delivering on it and you're taking people on that journey. So who are you engaging in the volunteering and your customers, and how are you doing it?
Sure. We have a very talented group of organizers in Cooking for Community. There's about, I'd say, 8 of us that make this work. My official title is operations manager. So my job is to wrangle the restaurants. Different restaurateurs have different levels of engagement. Some are very tied to their emails, and some only pick up the phone, and some only deal with text message. And so it's my job to take each week's budget effectively. I match it up with another woman whose job is to handle the agencies, the social agencies. We figure out which agencies need which meals, and then I distribute those meal requirements across the different restaurants and make sure that certain restaurants, don't cook on Mondays, for example. So finding the restaurants that can, and making sure that every day of the week the food gets put out. And the customers per se that are varied. It's senior living arrangements. It was in the YMCA, was doing outreach. We work with a particular agency very closely here in Portland called Amistad, and these people are really amazing. One of the gentlemen whose job it is to distribute the food literally drives around town and puts the meals in a bag and hunts down homeless people under overpasses and knows which campsites where to find these people. And so from a meal perspective, what's interesting is that we're not cooking kale salad and things like that. We're cooking meals that are in many cases their only meal of the day. They're meals that are flavorful yet nutritious and balanced. And I remember very vividly when I saw the impact. We do have occasional panhandlers, and so we had some extra meals one day because we made a dozen extra meals or something. And I said, I'm just gonna jump in my car and drive around because you can get them at the intersections. And I handed a meal out, and we have these stickers on our meal boxes to identify Cooking for Community. And the face of the woman who I gave this meal to lit up because she had had one of our meals last week. And what's interesting is that while I certainly applaud the soup kitchens and everybody out there, the restaurant quality meal and the restaurant approach to the recipe. Again, we're not going crazy and providing ribeyes, but we're providing interesting meals with a flavor profile that some of these people had never had before. And the gratitude and the excitement that this individual showed me when she realized she was going to get one of these meals was really rewarding. And obviously we serve guests all day, and we get comments on Yelp and all that sort of stuff, and we get the feedback from our core customer base, which is the paying customers. Mm-hmm. But now to see these recipients get it was incredibly satisfying. So yeah, we raise money from individuals and from corporations. That money then gets budgeted and matched with agencies, and then I make sure the restaurants that are out there in this group produce them on the days they're supposed to do it, so that the meals can get into the mouths.
That is so awesome. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we have today as our guest on the Caring Economy, Ian Malin, who is a veteran aviation finance executive, the CFO of AJW Group, as well as the owner of Little Giant Restaurant in Portland, Maine, and a co-founder of Cooking for Community. Ian, can you tell us a little bit more about if there's government involvement at all? Do you leave it to the agencies to help you with the distribution and identification of recipients of Cooking for Community? Is there a larger role for government to play, or what are your thoughts?
There is, and that's the next step in our evolution, is approaching something like government money. We are in the final stages of obtaining our official 501c3 status, and so without that, there were limitations in terms of which pockets of cash we could access. We had partnered with a fiscal sponsor, which is another 501c that is happy to act as a sort of umbrella organization, so that donations that people made are tax deductible. We ourselves are, like I said, just in the process of becoming our own 501c3. But if you have to remember, this started in April, and at that point, everybody was washing down their groceries with with alcohol and quarantining their mail and things like that. So there was a lot of uncertainty as to the protocols around the spread of COVID. And so the system that we put in place was that we would not ask the restaurants to engage with the food insecure. We identified agencies. Let's take the YMCA, for example, who we did partner with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare on a big donation to support that particular program. But the way that this works operationally is that the restaurants produce the meals, package the meals, and make them available for the agencies to come collect. A lot of these agencies have vans, and they can do the distribution. We also found idle transport solutions for some of the agencies who didn't have that sort of van or trucking capability. But the restaurants make the meals available, and then the agencies collect, and then they distribute the meals to their constituents. Again, whether it's a housing authority or whether it's elderly population or whatever the case may be. So that was designed to protect the restaurants and avoid any sort of interaction with somebody who may be infected, because we obviously need to make sure that the restaurants kept their own little bubbles intact.
And Jan, how, if at all, has technology played a role in this? It seems to me that you probably get that scale more quickly because of technology that wasn't available 5 or even 2 years ago. But is that a safe assumption, or is it kind of old school in the way you identify and deliver?
Well, the delivery and the production is is of course old school, because what restaurants do is, they use heat and flame and that sort of stuff. But technology has helped us on the fundraising side. We've been able to reach a broader audience to get the word out. Obviously social media then puts us in front of conventional media, where we've had a lot of support from the both the press, the written press, and the TV media.
And can you tell our listeners who are interested in either donating or in maybe trying to mimic what you're doing in Portland, some of your social media hashtags or URLs?
Yeah, so the organization is just www.cookingforcommunity.org, and you can make a donation directly there. Or if you are looking to customize something, then you can contact the team that we have that do the development side of things.
Terrific.
And in terms of the model, we have a whole packet of material that has allowed us to expand into these other markets like Lewis and Auburn, like I said, or Mid-Coast, where it's impossible for me to coordinate restaurants, anything outside of the immediate local area, because there's a lot of driving around and talking to people. But we've been able to replicate that with people like me in other areas. And we see ourselves as a Maine-based organization. We would welcome the opportunity to expand into other markets, but the fundraising is a challenge for any nonprofit, and so we're limited by the amount of funds that we have.
Well, I think at some point I'll want to hook you up with our friend and neighbor, Eve Felder, who's a dean at the Culinary Institute of America. I'm sure they've got all kinds of interesting programs going on. And she's based in Singapore now, where she opened the campus there. So you two, we'll figure out sorry for that. We'll figure out a way to connect you. Jan, I want to take our last couple of minutes here to go backward in time and talk about mentors. I remember years ago in Hong Kong meeting one of your mentors, I think it was David.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about who's mentored you in life, what you look for in a mentor, and conversely, who are you mentoring now, and any sort of lessons learned that you would want our younger listeners, of which there are many, to heed.
I find myself in a situation right now where I don't have a mentor that I can draw on, and I think that's part of just the progression of getting older in life and rising to the top. Where I've been fortunate to have some very talented people who have taken an interest in me. That person, David Turnbull, in Hong Kong, is the former CEO of Cathay Pacific Airlines. That's the aviation perspective, or the aviation history there. But there's a few other names: Stephen Daniel, who was my boss in New York, as well as Tom Malone, a former boss in New York, both with a finance background. And one of the most important things that I tell people who work for me now is, there's a lot of self-promotion happening out there in the world. Certainly social media has encouraged that. And there's a lot of people who constantly ask for validation. And of course, praise is helpful and necessary. But I keep on reminding people that if you do a good job and you put your time in, and you learn the details, then you will get noticed. And you don't have to tell me about it, because my job is to observe and evaluate and make sure that that the mission, whether it's the business that we're running or the end goal that we're pursuing, that's my job to make sure that we're on the shortest path from A to B. And so it's my job to make sure that you're being evaluated. And so if you're doing a good job, you're going to get noticed. I don't need to hear about it. And so I feel like a lot of people put things out there on social media with that specific objective.
Mm-hmm.
To some extent, we do that because we have to. As part of the business, people want to know what's going on. But I like to think that if people spend as much time on social media as they did actually getting the job done and doing it properly, then you'd have a lot more progress. But in terms of where I find myself in my ripe old age of 44, is spending a lot more time thinking more about the greater good, especially with a situation like COVID, to really sober people up and assess things. And so what we do for Cooking for Community for little Giant has to some extent been about survival. Before the CARES Act money came in and other sorts of grants that the state of Maine and other institutions have put out, Cooking for Community was a way for me to generate cash flow, keep some of the people employed, and help me pay my bills. And it's been invaluable in that respect. Little Giant alone has done just about 10,000 meals, and we get paid for every one of those meals. And so it helps when there's no other customers. There's a lot of pressure from the community for Little Giant to open up indoors for dining, which we're allowed to do currently in the state of Maine to 50% capacity. We have chosen not to for a number of reasons. One is because you don't want to put our staff and our customers in danger. I don't believe that I'm the foremost expert on how COVID spread works, but I feel like indoors is worse. So we've done exclusively outdoor dining since when we reopened earlier this year. We obviously had a summer to help us, and the weather was spectacular as it is in Maine in the summer. It's a lot more challenging now where it's 21 degrees outside Fahrenheit as we are, but we are investing, and this is an interesting perspective. We're investing for the long term. And so we have had money to support outdoor dining. The city has put some money out, as has the state. And a lot of people are building igloos and temporary sort of solutions, as you've seen in New York. And we're lucky enough that we had a back courtyard, which we are building a permanent structure around with both radiant heating in the floor and overhead heating in the form of electric lamps, which we are offsetting with green renewable energy. And I see that less so of a Band-Aid for COVID and more so as this is not only going to help Little Giant for future winters, because I can serve year round now for years to come. I can do private events, but it also allows me to expand my offerings in the summer when the weather is nice, but it happens to be raining, for example. And so I had the opportunity to do something sort of knee jerk or do something deliberate. And I think that I think this whole situation has thankfully focused people on maybe thinking more long-term, more altruistically. I think this outgoing administration has also focused people on what priorities do we as a society want to pursue. Yeah. And I'm hoping that these realizations translate into people's business choices.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jan. And I think it's an interesting metaphor that you are in the restaurant business now, because to me, part of the reason I wrote The Caring Economy is that to serve is the most noble thing any of us can do. So the fact that philosophically, metaphorically, and practically speaking, you're serving others is, I think, the way forward. And I think you're right to make the investments you have had these past few months. And so with that, I just want to say thank you to Ian Malin. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ian Malin and Toby Usnik. Ian is the CFO of the AJW Group, major aviation finance company, as well as the owner of Little Giant in Portland, Maine, and co-founder of Cooking for Community. Please check out the website. If you want to bring it to your community, be in touch with Jan or put it on social media and we'll find a way to get to you. Jan, any final thoughts from you?
I think we've covered a broad spectrum. I feel a little bit sheepish in terms of my own horn tooting, so I think I'm going to leave it at that and get back to trying to figure out our winter model.
Okay, well, Ian Malin, thank you so much for joining us here on The Caring Economy, and give Kate my best, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you, Toby.